if you've done keys this season, you know that a typical Galakrond's Fall experience involves getting farmed by the portal mobs 20 times, walking up to the last boss with 15 minutes remaining, and timing the key. And no team knows that better than the team of Anuo and ZyBB, the team formerly known as Aster Y, and they were able to actually time Galakrond's Fall on a 30. And this is incredibly, incredibly impressive. And so we're going to take a few moments today to VOD review and talk through how they were able to time this. So now they're playing the composition of Protection Paladin, Discipline Priest, Havoc Demon Hunter, Outlaw Rogue, and Augmentation Evoker. This is pretty standard for them. They love Outlaw Rogue. Nuo has recently re-rolled off of his beloved Vengeance Demon Hunter and on to Protection Paladin, having seen the surgence of Western players playing that Protection Paladin. A lot of this comes down to the survivability that the Prot Paladin provides to the group. There are specific spots inside of this dungeon where spell warding is incredibly valuable and is able to save his players from one-shots. Same with Blessing of Sacrifice. And so those are pretty much the reasons that you're going to see a Nuo having swapped Vengeance Demon Hunter to that Prot Paladin. Right off the rip, you see Shroud be utilized. A lot of teams would actually commit like Invis Potion here, but this team is committing Shroud. Now they're making sure that they're only getting the 4 Epoch Rippers plus the mobs that are at the bottom of the staircase, and this is because this is done on the bolstering week, right? Where it's these Time Slashes and Chrono Weavers have significantly less HP than these Epoch Rippers. The Epoch Rippers, once they have even 3 stacks of bolstering, they're probably going to one-shot somebody 100 to 0. It's impossible, at least at this current moment, to miss at least 1 tick of the Epoch Rippers. It's possible to not get hit by a second tick, so you're going to see them once they start to get these Epoch Rippers larger. They're going to, press defensives. They're a bit scared to take them into the boss, but once some of these Rippers only have 1 stack of bolstering, they know they're not going to get 100 to 0 by the cast. They're more than fine to just kind of take this into the boss. First boss, fairly standard, not too much going on. We're gonna kind of skip ahead to the portal area. So now the portal area, I'm gonna pause, is done in 5 separate pulls. Most teams do this area in 4 pulls. So it starts off with pull 3 with the anomaly plus the trash that comes in the portal, and then they move counterclockwise around the room, which is a bit strange to me. The way that this is done in 5 pulls is because these coalesced time mobs, especially on bolstering, but whenever they're done with any other mob, you're likely to wipe, and they know that Galakrond's Fall has so much available time that they can take this Portal 4. So Portal 4 is typically done with this coalesced time number 1, but they know that they can take it slow. And so they're taking the big lizard into this portal pack. They're making sure to not pull too many leeches. They have an exact amount of leeches that they're going to need here, and their count is exactly perfect. So they need to make sure to get the right number of leeches. Again, this is actually very dangerous on bolstering. Those large lizards, what are these mobs actually called? The time stream anomalies are incredibly scary for your tank. Now there are ways to lower the amount of damage that they do, but the damage from the sand breath on your tank by itself is actually an insane amount of damage. So that's something that you have to watch out for. The other mob so there's 3 mobs that are dangerous here. Obviously the anomaly, very scary for your tank. The moments are the mobs that are dangerous for the group, and this is why you actually don't want this pack with the big elemental guy, is because of the sand debuff that the moments applied to players. And at this level, the moments sand debuff is doing an insane amount of damage, and you already see Anuo starting to heal that rogue, right? He's casting his Word of Glories, he's casting all of his heals onto that rogue whenever they have that sand debuff. Now it goes on to ZyBB on the Havoc Demon Hunter, and he actually goes down. So this is their second death of the dungeon. They're going to accrue a couple of deaths here. Most teams, whenever they do this key, especially on Fortified, accrue 10 to 15 deaths. I think this team gets out of here with like 5. And so that's actually quite impressive. And now this is that pull that I also had marked out. They do double leech. They're making sure to completely focus down this large mini boss. He puts the debuffs out onto players. These debuffs can either time out naturally or they can be dispelled off. Now, this is a mob that farms players a lot. You need insane defensives. You actually see a spell warding is committed on their Aug Evoker here, and ZyBB dies. So ZyBB actually thinks he's going to live here because he didn't commit Blur, but the Evoker gets spell warding and dies 100, and is the only person who's able to live, and ZyBB ends up going down. Now, that's a really scary part there. Now they have this other time stream anomaly that they're pulling with the portal pack. they're again taking this incredibly slow. They only have 3 deaths here. I think they're going to get 2 more on these mobs right here, which it happens, right? We're thankful that we have cheat deaths from the Aug Evoker and from the Rogue. We're thankful that we have spell warding and blessing of sacrifice to be able to reduce the amount of deaths just in general, because this trash sucks. On to Manifest Timeways. If this loads, okay. On to Manifest Timeways. They take a leech into the boss, which a Nuo and Prot Paladin can completely solo. If an Innervate cast goes off, basically how it works is it has to be purged for it to be kickable again. Alternatively, you can just CC it. The first tick of the Innervate's probably going to like dip somebody 80% of their health, especially at like a 30 level. So you really don't want those going off. But a Nuo has, with being on this Paladin, he has enough tools to be able to kind of deal with the leech by itself. And so a Nuo's VOD is cut after this boss, so we're gonna jump over to ZyVV's POV and kind of take a look at the end of the run. I would say the end of the run is not something that's actually like that insane. They do a pretty standard dragon skip. They actually go for the strat where they distract the dragon in the air. So there's a couple ways you can actually do this dragon skip. The way that I think is the most consistent is you just jump the gap to the right and you don't get the dragon at all. You can group up on a mount as a group and run together, just hugging right. That also works. Alternatively, you can have your rogue distract the dragon in the air as he's coming in, and that also can work. They miss the distract here or something. I can't tell exactly what happens. Their rogue gets in combat, has to sack himself. It's not like a huge deal, but it is 5 seconds of time loss that you don't prefer. Now, this area right here is exact count. And so they have to, so they're only doing 1 dragon to the left here, but they have to make sure they get all of these blight chunks except for 3. They're allotted 3 misses on the blight chunks. And so you're going to see there, because they have exact count with how many leeches they pulled, they're going to need to make sure that they get all those blight chunks in. And you see right there, they have the perfect amount. They're going to take these dragons one at a time. Their lust also, so the first lust was first pull the dungeon. Second lust was on CD, on Manifest Timeways, which is kind of interesting because most groups don't, unless it's tyrannical, they don't actually get lust on Manifest Timeways too often. But with this team, because it's a 30, they're actually kind of, I want to say slow, but they're kind of slow, right? In the sense of they have the lust available on pull for Manifest Timeways. They pop it on meta basically at like 80%, but so they're not going to have lust for Blight of Galakrond, which a lot of groups actually lust Blight of Galakrond at like 75% or something like that. So now they're just kind of motoring through these dragons here. The lust comes up in about 2 minutes. They might actually have it for the bottom 50%. So let's talk about how they tank Blighted Galakrond. I actually think that how they tank this boss sucks, but so we'll talk through it. Initial big chunk. They move this left. Typically, I would recommend moving this to the right. And that's because, and you're going to see this a little bit later, their puddle management is going to be a bit sketchy. Now, the advantage of moving it to the left is that they get a little bit of milk on this dragon before it spawns. Maybe this will skip them a wins phase. I'm not 100% sure. But with how they're managing their puddles here, they're going to have, whenever this boss breaks into the 2 dragon phase, they're going to have a lot of gunk around kind of where they want to play with this double dragon phase. An advantage of their composition also, by the way, is that everybody who's eligible on this boss to get, except for the Aug Evoker, is able to invis off not only the corrosion, but also the extinction event on Galakrond. And so you'll see the rogue vanishing fairly frequently whenever he's getting targeted with this corrosion. Kind of same thing. So the priest will be melding, the demon will be melding. You can also potentially spell word it as well. So those are some things that you're going to see this group doing whenever that corrosion cast is going out. Now, while I don't like where they're tanking this boss, or where they've dropped some of their puddles, something that they actually do a really good job of with these puddles is they're making sure that the Augmentation Evoker and the Disc Priest are stacked together and they're moving slightly in front of the group, right? This allows you to drop the puddles, I would say, slightly behind the group, and then you're trying to move the boss that drops the puddles ahead, right? The boss, there's one boss that's stationary that will just cast on players, and there's one boss that moves. The boss that casts on players, they need them to continue to be in front of the group to continuously be able to move them out of the gunk. And so that kind of makes sense. Then they pull all the trash at the end of the dungeon. nothing is too abnormal about that. I don't think that there's anything. They actually kind of they miss a lust. I would describe it as missing a lust because they could have pressed on CD and gotten an extra one. Like I was saying earlier, they have exact count, so they do 1 1 2. They do 2 1 1. Sorry, I said this backwards. They do 2 1 1 for the trash pulls. This is a 2-pack. 2 packs together. This is 1 pack 1 pack, and then they go into a Ridicron, and the Ridicron is pretty sketch. They have like 5.5 minutes for a Ridicron. They have about 6 minutes even per Ridicron ish. You know, it's be like 5:45 once the boss is pulled, and they're praying that the extinction event goes on people with, you know, Nelfs and Melds and stuff like that to be able to deal with it. They, depending on how long their intermission phase is, they are going to have something like a Zephyr available for every single one. For spell warding, if their evoker ever gets the extinction event on them, easy spell ward. We're spell warding that every single time. The dot's incredibly dangerous. We went with Rogue Vanish for the first one. Not too much that's abnormal on a Ridicron just as a whole. I think that the Disc Priest was able to heal and did a great job of being able to heal this boss. I think that it's a situation where Prot Paladin also adds a lot of value here. And so, yeah, they pop their Lust on pull. They even kind of had their Lust rolling into this intermission for a few seconds. It's not like a lot of it. But they pop their Lust early. I don't know what cooldowns they have towards the very end of this fight. I mean, we can just scoot forward and see. So because like this boss is kind of interesting because the last stand mechanic is such where the boss's HP, especially this happens a lot more in Tyrannical, but you have to commit a lot for the last stand mechanic because his HP scales so out of control. All right, should be right here, and so. They're getting kind of close to this last stand. Should be coming out here in just a moment. Oh, here it is. So what exactly do they have offensively? So they get through the extinction event, and before the boss even goes into it, they immediately Eons to try to push the boss before he actually gets shielded, it looks like. Do they still have Eons on the boss? Eons pops on the boss before the... Oh, no. Okay, so Eons pops on the boss like right as the last stand starts, so I mean, it's like, okay. They have Shadow Blades. Where's our meta? Okay, we press meta here too. So we have Shadow Blades and meta. It makes sense that, or yeah, it makes sense that we are, or Shadow Dance and meta. Makes sense that we're able to kind of pop off here. Yeah, now Dance is pressed here. So overall, kind of a very interesting run. I was surprised that this team was able to time this key. This is the first run of Galakrond's Fall on 30 that we were able to see timed. It's not a dungeon that has like a super intrusive timer, so it makes sense, but at the same point it's not like the easiest key to not get completely farmed in and have to, you know, down level at one time. That's it though. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.